Welcome to part 7 of our 8-part video series for the MicroFocus iPrint Appliance 2.0. My name is Bob Johnson with MicroFocus Technical Support, and in part 7 we are going to be migrating from NetWare 6.5 to the iPrint Appliance 2.0. When migrating, this is more of a duplication of the NetWare 6.5 iPrint environment. Because we're duplicating the environment, users will continue to print to the NetWare server during the migration. In fact, they'll continue to print to the NetWare server whether or not the migration was successful. And because of this, the migration is a zero-risk procedure. At the end of the migration, we will go through the process of switching users from the NetWare iPrint environment to the iPrint appliance. For additional information concerning the migration from NetWare to the appliance, you can refer to this documentation link. I also recommend applying the latest patches to the iPrint Appliance 2.0 available here at this link. And I also recommend taking a snapshot of the iPrint Appliance prior to the migration. As mentioned, it is a zero-risk operation. However, you may find after the migration that you decide to revert back to the appliance pre-migration for whatever reason, and having a snapshot available makes it an easy process. For our demonstration, I'm going to assume that you've already deployed, installed, and configured the iPrint Appliance 2.0. If you haven't done this, you can refer to video 1 for the step-by-step process on how to do this. We'll go ahead and proceed with a migration to an already installed and configured iPrint appliance. Prior to migrating the iPrint services from NetWare to the iPrint Appliance 2.0, it is recommended that you import your users from eDirectory to the appliance. This process was covered in detail in video 4 of this 8-part series. If you haven't imported your users, please refer to that video for the step-by-step process. The next thing that needs to happen is we need to verify that the SSH service is running on your iPrint Appliance 2.0. So in your management console, again, always logging in as VA admin, click on System Services, and note the status of SSH. If the status is not running, you can highlight the service, click Action, and click Start. The other thing you can do if you'd like is under Options, you can set it to Automatic so that the SSH service will automatically start anytime the appliance is started. Once you verify that SSHD is running, then we can proceed with the migration. The next step is to run the MIG-GUI command from the appliance. As this utility is a graphical interface, this command needs to be run from either another Linux box, a Mac, or as in our example, using a program like MobaXterm. Refer to the documentation at this link if you would prefer to use a tool other than MobaXterm. Note, MobaXterm is a free third-party utility for Windows that does not ship with the iPrint appliance. As such, it must be downloaded and installed on a Windows PC. As of this video, it can be downloaded from http://mobaxterm.mobatech.net. Once MobaXterm is started, click Session, click SSH, and for the remote host, you're going to specify the host name or the IP address of your iPrint appliance. For our purposes, we will use an IP address. I select the option to specify a username, and we're logging in as root. And then click OK. And then type in your root password. If you get prompted for this, use the same root password. And we can click Yes to save. We're now at a point where we can run the MIG-GUI process. So we simply type MIG-GUI. Once the MIG-GUI screen comes up, the first thing you'll need to do is click on the source server, which is our NetWare server. Type in the IP address or host name of the server. If you're migrating from a cluster, you'll need to mark this is cluster resource option. And then the IP address that you specify is actually the IP address of the resource where the iPrint services are running. And then for username, type in the CN of the eDirectory administrator, as well as the O or OU where the administrator resides, and then his password. There is no root password, as this is a NetWare server and not an OES Linux server. And click OK. Since we're going over port 636 using SSL, you may see a prompt, if you have not run through this process before, prompting you to accept a certificate, which you will accept. And once you do that, then the server authentication process, if it is successful, will light up the server green as you see on the screen. The next step is to click on the iPrint appliance server. For the iPrint appliance server, the CN is admin and the O is always iPrint appliance. And the password you specified when you configured the appliance, and also the root password in this case. Click OK. And this is a certificate prompt since this is the first migration to this appliance. Click Accept. There are cases where we see the authentication over SSL failed to the iPrint Appliance 2.0. We're not going to go through the process of troubleshooting that. If you do get that particular failure to authenticate and you are in this condition, simply unselect Use SSL and you can do the authentication over port 389. Go ahead and click OK. And now the authentication to the iPrint appliance has been successful. At this point, you click Add, select Novell iPrint, click OK, click Yes to configure the iPrint service now. You'll click on this button to browse to the iPrint manager running on the NetWare server. Highlight it, click OK. The target print manager, since it knows we're migrating to the appliance, is already filled out for us. At this point, we click Get Printers. And this shows us the printers that we currently have configured on NetWare. I want to select all of them because I want to migrate all of the printers. The target context will be the appliance. We could create a unique OU for our printers if we wanted to in iManager for the appliance, but in this case we're just going to migrate our printer objects to the iPrint appliance O. You can click on other options if you'd like, if any of these apply to you. For example, if your driver store is not on the same server as the iPrint manager in NetWare, you would select this option, specify the appropriate information applying to the remote driver store. Same for the target driver store. In our case, the driver store is on the iPrint appliance. And then you have some printer driver options that are fairly self-explanatory. We're going to leave this at the default. We're going to migrate the printer driver if the driver is not present in the target driver store. But you could choose the option to migrate all drivers. It would override anything that was on the iPrint appliance. We'll leave this option. We'll migrate all drivers. If you had printer driver profiles configured in NetWare, you would leave this option at the default if you want those printer driver profiles to migrate. And then the iPrint INI settings on your NetWare iPrint environment will get migrated if you leave this option selected. So it might be worth it to take a look at the iPrint INI on NetWare just to make sure you want those same options configured when you migrate to the iPrint appliance. At this point, we can click OK, and we can click Migrate. You can save this if you'd like, and yes, to proceed. At this point, the migration begins. Depending on your environment, and largely depending on the number of printer drivers you have in your driver store, this process can take a while. If you'd like, you can click on the View Logs option and watch this process as it migrates everything from NetWare to the iPrint Appliance 2.0. For the purposes of this demonstration, I will close this and we'll actually skip forward to the end of the migration. And as you can see, the migration has successfully completed. The progress is at 100%. So at this point, you can close the MIG-GUI screen. You can save this project if you'd like. It's not required. At this point, you can close MOBA Xterm. MIG-GUI reported that the migration was successful, but how do we really know it was successful? One thing you can do is you can go to the IPP page of the iPrint appliance to see if your migrated printers show up, which we'll do now. And we can see that in addition to printers I had created in the appliance, I now have my Dell MFP, my HP Color Laser, my HP LaserJet 5. I also have a Dell 1135, all printers that existed in the NetWare print system. So that's one way of verifying that the migration was a success. The other thing we can do is we can go to the PSM status page of the iPrint appliance, and we'll get more detailed information about the status of the printers that we just migrated. And as you can see, they all show in an idle state, which is good information. We can go to Advanced iPrint Manager Configuration. We can generate report, and we can actually look at the drivers that migrated during this process. And depending on what was actually configured, we'll see a list of drivers. I believe in this NetWare environment, we only had Windows 7 64-bit drivers. And that is true for the Dell 1135, the LaserJet 5, the MFP, and the Color Laser, showing that we had Windows 7 64-bit drivers. So that is also very good news. And ultimately, I guess the final test would be to have end users go to the IPP page and install the newly migrated printer. However, as an administrator, that is not something you want to go through, instructing each of your end users to go out to the IPP page and reinstall the newly migrated printers. So one feature available to you is something called printer redirection. What this allows you to do is redirect the installed iPrint printer from the NetWare server to the newly migrated printer on the iPrint Appliance 2.0. And the way you do that is you're actually copying the iPrint printer URL from the appliance, and you're putting that information into the printer agent redirection section in iManager for the NetWare iPrint environment. So while you're in the PSM status page on the appliance, you can click on iPrint printer URL and you can click Generate Report. And this shows you the new iPrint printer URL for the migrated printers. And for example, if I wanted to redirect my users from the NetWare print server to the new appliance for the Dell 1135, I would simply copy this URL, and then I would bring up iManager for my NetWare server. Click on iPrint, click on Manage Print Manager. I have mine in the history. Click OK. And then I would go to Printer Agent Redirection. And I want to redirect Dell 1135, right click and paste, to the Dell 1135 on the iPrint appliance. Once you specify that URL, click Apply. And it will say your changes have been saved, and click OK. Now what will happen is the next time a user restarts their machine, or when the Windows Print Spooler goes out and checks printer status, the iPrint printer that was installed against the NetWare server will be removed, and it will be reinstalled as the iPrint printer on the appliance. And depending on how your iPrint INI is configured, the user may not ever see this happen. If you'd like, you can refer to this knowledge base article 3476106 to look at the different options that you can configure in the iPrint INI in order to suppress the messages that a user may or may not see when the printer is uninstalled and reinstalled. In many cases, administrators will make the printer redirection changes after hours so that when the user boots up their machine for the first time, this redirection process takes place upon boot up. Now that you've successfully migrated your print environment from NetWare to the iPrint Appliance 2.0, and you've configured all of your printer agents for printer agent redirection, as an administrator, you might be asking yourself, how do I know when users are no longer printing to my NetWare iPrint server? To answer that question, you can open up a web browser and go to the host name or IP address of your NetWare server /PSM status. You'll authenticate as the eDirectory administrator, and then you'll see a screen like this one showing a list of all of your printer agents. And what you'll notice over time is in the jobs printed since columns, those numbers will start to decrease, and eventually they will end up as zeros. At that point, you can assume that there are no users printing to the NetWare iPrint server, at which point you can either decommission the server or unload the NDPSM NLM. This concludes video part 7 of our 8-part series. In our final video, we will go through the process of migrating from the 1.1 version of the iPrint appliance to the latest iPrint appliance 2.0. Thank you for watching.